Gartner recently released their top 10 trends in data and analytics for 2020. In that list, they've declared that we're going to see the decline of the dashboard. Instead of dashboards, we'll be using dynamic data stories with more automated experiences. Now, I do believe that Gartner's right about the decline of the dashboard, but they couldn't be more wrong about what comes next for the future of analytics. Let's start with their original premise, though, the part that they got right about dashboards. I've been a consultant in the data space for a decade, and from that experience, there's one thing that I can tell you for sure. No one is satisfied with their data analytics. Everyone is frustrated. Why is it so hard to answer a question? Why are we struggling to make confident, timely decisions? The reality is business problems are popping up on a daily basis, like little fires that need to be put out. These fires aren't waiting on your 6-month data pipeline project to finish. They demand attention now, and they only continue to spread as you twiddle your thumbs. Let's take a look at one of those fires and how we usually respond today. So a problem happens at our company. Maybe sales crashed last week and no one knows why. We want to understand what happened. Why did it happen? What do we do next? This is where a process I call data ping-pong kicks off. James sends a screenshot of a report to Jane with a note asking, what happened here? Jane gathers some data into a spreadsheet, but realizes, she's missing some pieces, so she forwards it on to Carl. Carl fills in the blanks with some of his own data and sends it back to Jane. Jane looks at that and finds some issues. Back to Carl we go. Carl realizes he's out of his depth, he needs more help, so he forwards it on to Amy. So on and so forth. By the time the resulting analysis comes back to James, it looks like Frankenstein. There are 20 sheets in it. There's no rhyme or reason to it. There's no telling how did it get to this point, who touched it along the way, how valid is it. It's a murky mess that's hard to trust and harder to act on. So there are a couple of approaches the industry has tried for solving these problems. There's what I call the dashboard blanket as one approach, and then the self-service kiosk as another approach. With the dashboard blanket, the idea is that we put out our business problem fires by smothering our organization with a thick layer of dashboards. The promise of the dashboard blanket is that if everyone has access to some standard set of facts, they'll suddenly make data-driven decisions in a unified motion. This is a broken promise, of course, but why? Why are people still not on the same page under the cover of the dashboard blanket? The problem with the dashboard blanket is the problem with the dashboard itself. A dashboard is unidirectional. A dashboard communicates information in one direction to a consumer of that data. In the process of a dashboard, all the stakeholders are clearly separated into an assembly line. The business analyst determines requirements and then passes them on. The data engineer gets the data together and then passes that on. The data analyst models the data into some charts and passes them on. If the consumer isn't satisfied with the output, you have to start the whole process over again from the top. Now, this approach isn't only slow to respond to changing needs, it actually creates barriers between the stakeholders who have the shared knowledge to solve the problems. The dashboard blanket's been around for a while, so the fashionable trend now is the self-service kiosk. The idea here is that we don't provide our consumers with analytic support at all. Instead, we give them a lifeless interface where they can ask a question and then hope for a relevant answer back. This response is sort of like the fire department showing up, tossing their gear onto your lawn and saying, "Here you go, good luck with your fire." Where the dashboard blanket is weak because it's unidirectional, the self-service kiosk is a disaster because it's completely immobile. There's no connection there between the consumer of analytics and the various stakeholders who influence the analytics. So this brings us back to Gartner's misguided prediction for the future, which is essentially doubling down on the self-service kiosk. With AI, we can forget humans altogether. The AI will customize the data stories for us. This is, of course, the same AI that thinks Barack Obama is a goofy white dude. So AI can crunch the numbers, but it lacks all the context needed for a useful decision. Both of these approaches share a common theme. They try to suppress or remove the human impact from the process of data analytics. If we want to see where the future of data analytics resides, maybe we need to go the opposite direction. What if we stop trying to replace the people in our organization? What if we stop trying to wrangle them in? What if we empowered them instead? Business problems are undoubtedly complex. They require multiple skills, perspectives, resources in order to solve them effectively. Imagine if we could put together a digital war room, a shared space made up of those multiple stakeholders working together to solve a problem. Imagine who's around that table. We've got the engineer who knows where the data is hosted, the analyst who knows how to manipulate the numbers, the business person who understands the reality of the day-to-day operations, the executive who's wise from decades of industry experience. In this environment, we would harvest the collective intelligence of humans, not bury it. What could this type of platform look like? There are 3 components that a successful system like this must have. The first component is that it must encourage experimentation. How can we explore as many ideas as possible to gain true understanding? In the language of innovation, we often hear about failing fast. That's a good start. But what if we went further and created a system where we could fail safely? A system that allows us to move back and forth between points in time, giving us the freedom to search far and wide wherever our intuition leads us. The second component is that it must eliminate blind spots. This system would take the concept of feedback early and often to the extreme. We would have multiple perspectives, questioning assumptions, expanding on each other's work, enlightening and enriching the analysis in a seamless and continuous fashion. The last component is that it must model the data the way we think about it, not the way that computers think about it. The system would ditch linear relationships and instead focus on the interconnectedness of data. It would allow us to explore the associations between all kinds of data from all kinds of sources. Now, none of these techniques are new. Read any book on how to be successful in business or sports or the arts, and you'll find these 3 common themes: experimentation, collaboration, association. We know all of these things work, so it's about time that we start applying them to our data. If we did, we'd be able to find new ideas, new insights, and new innovations. So that's why I think Gartner's wrong. In the next generation of analytics, you will not see success in trying to replace human intelligence. The truly successful companies will be the ones that link human intelligence.